I didn't know what was going to happen or where it was going to go, but I wasn't really too concerned about it because I still had to go out and work. And yeah, basically until someone tells me I can't go out and see people, well, then I'm going to keep going out to see people.
And then they said
So-
you couldn't.
Yeah. And then they said, sorry, you got to stay home.
Welcome to another episode of the Insurance, Life, and Everything in Between podcast. I haven't changed my clothes for the third time today. I'm sorry, Adam. Even though we've done 3 videos, you're stuck with this outfit since today is Maryland Day. You may not be watching this on March 25th. You may be, depending on how quick he is to the trigger, but it still is Maryland Day, as strange as that sounds. But today, we're talking about COVID 4 years ago. No, not the virus, not the politics, not the masks, not the mandates, not any of that stuff that got everyone's blood boiling and protests starting, but like COVID from our perspective, from the agent, the agency, from the human side of navigating the biggest curveball our business ever saw. How's that sound for today's topic, Adam?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I just remember, talk about how things really changed 4 years ago with really just everything, with the way we lived, the unsurety of really what was to come, not really knowing how serious it was or if it even was very serious. I mean, no one really knew much of anything yet, but at the time, yeah, I mean, heck, everything changed. Things shutting down. I remember Easter, where my parents like couldn't come over for Easter. Like everyone had to stay separated. And I mean, it ruined a lot of people's holidays. It ruined, there might've been someone dying in a hospital bed from another disease and like family couldn't even go visit them. Just talk about just a total, change of just the way that we live our lives and how we had to change with and adapt really to living a different lifestyle.
Absolutely. I remember from the everything in between perspective, going through divorce and separation exactly as this was taking place. And I think to myself, was it really that bad? Or was it just like doubly bad? Was it always bad? Like, it was just like every single thing except the business was falling apart. But even the business got hard because then they said you couldn't see people in person in certain states. I'm like, this is just nuts at that point. But what was interesting about at least the genesis of it is I kind of saw it coming. Like I pay enough attention to current events, Fox News, MSNBC, if I'm in all that stuff. And I could hear the wave of it starting. January, some folks are sick in overseas. Like December, someone's sick in Seattle. I'm like, something's coming, something's happening, but I don't ever remember. I didn't imagine it would have become as big as it did, as quick as it did either.
Yeah, I remember too hearing about it. Like, I think the first thing I remember hearing was people like in a cruise ship or something, and like people were starting to get sick on this cruise ship, and then going on YouTube and seeing all these videos about how someone got it, and like 3 days later they dropped dead. Like, just to me, a lot of it I think was almost like, I don't know, maybe not scare tactics, but I just think a lot of it was just people not really knowing the what was to come and the unsurety of things.
That's for sure. And then it hit the industry. It hit the industry in a way that many of us in many states like Pennsylvania, where I sold a lot in, Illinois, where Adam was from, you weren't able to sell face to face. Like I remember in the field one day getting an email or a notification and it said the state police could potentially come and investigate you and your license if you were caught selling in person in Pennsylvania. And I said to myself, well, I still have appointments tomorrow. Like, what the hell? Like, literally, what the hell? But it still happened. And I think that it kind of put agents in one of 3 categories, which we're going to dissect. Number 1, they had money. They put together a plan and they didn't fully panic. Well, some degree of panic was expected, but they logicked their way out of it. Number 2, they had no money, or they were new to the business, or for whatever reason it was, they really had no reserves, but they followed a plan and they survived. And then there was the third category of agent that just didn't. Like I was watching a video, Adam, recently of an organization that's getting popular online, and they said they didn't grow during COVID. And that kind of scared me. Like if I was thinking of all the other businesses that survived and thrived and made it through, and they're saying they didn't, man, I stopped watching that video pretty quick. But number one, the agents that had money and made it, the ones that just barely made it because they put in a plan, and the ones that didn't. How's that sound like a plan to dissect?
Yeah, for sure. In my role at the time, I mean, I was running a region for an insurance company with a whole bunch of final expense agents all over the place. And so, really where I was at, it was more on like the internal side of what are we going to do to make sure we still have agents to continue to write business. Because from the company standpoint, it was kind of like, well, we need to adjust, because if we don't adjust, well, agents, they still have a livelihood. They still have to figure out ways to write business. And if they are not able to write it here, well, for sure they're going to end up writing it somewhere. Mm-hmm. So that was really, on my side, I was still out writing business as well. I remember at the time, it might have been just a little over 4 years ago. I know it was in March. I actually went back and watched it maybe a week or two ago. I posted a YouTube video where I just pretty much talked about how I didn't know what was going to happen or where it was going to go, but I wasn't really too concerned about it because I still had to go out and work. And basically until someone tells me I can't go out and see people, well, then I'm going to keep going out to see people.
And they said you couldn't.
Yeah. And then they said, sorry, you got to stay home. So, and then, I mean, for a long time, even still, I mean, I'll still show up at a house and people will have masks on. Mm-hmm. So I think it really affected people. Well, again, I mean, and people that maybe still wear the masks, maybe they're people that never left their homes. They never got COVID. They still don't know what could happen if they did get it. So where I got it, my family, we got COVID like in September of 2020. We were like the first people in our neighborhood to get it. And like everybody was freaking out in the neighborhood about it because of the unsurety at the time. And I remember because, you watch videos, well, this is what's going to happen day one. This is what's going to happen day two and day three. And I kept keeping track of the days and I'm just kind of sitting there like, well, it hasn't gotten worse yet. So I guess that's a good thing. Because I was sitting around, we were scared. We really didn't know what was to come. The way that it was, publicized and how it seemed like it could be pretty severe, and it was for some people. There were quite a few people that got it, but I think it just affected everybody a little bit differently.
For sure.
So, but yeah, back to the work perspective, like what you said, like I said, I mean, first thing from my point of view, we had to adjust as a company. And that was one thing that was great. The company that I worked with, they did put a plan together very quickly where agents right away were able to continue to writing business. So I don't think anything really fell off from a internal standpoint. But yeah, like you said, there were just different types of agents. I personally just think agents needed to be willing to adjust, to change. And I think maybe that's something that a lot of people have trouble with, is adapting to change, whether that's something due to COVID or anything else. Some people are just kind of comfortable in their way of doing things and they don't want to have to change. That situation, we didn't have a choice. It was either you adapt to change or you're out of business.
Yeah. I remember realizing that selling in person wasn't going to be possible in Pennsylvania, which was the route where I did most of my business. And then selling over the phone really consisted more to me of working through my book of business. Like I had years and years and years of boxes of old paper applications. And I would walk from the old office I had in the basement of that house to the storage room, and I'd pull out a box and I would pull it down and I'd start calling. And I was working some live transfers from a semi-skeptical source that really amounted to maybe a few applications. but it really was pulling another box and putting it down and calling folks and doing virtual policy reviews and adding on 3,000, 5,000, 2,000. Not a lot, but what one of the guys that was in leadership at the time in the organization I was with, he was kind of describing like, look, you're just in survival mode right now. That's okay to be in. Just write enough business to pay your bills. Write enough business to pay your bills. Put one application up. You're not going to have 40K months right now. I can't imagine being in his position, having a large agency and seeing some folks just straight up say, F it. Like, it was hard from just a personal producer perspective. From the global perspective, it was crazy, I bet.
Well, yeah. And I mean, fortunately, I mean, the position I was in at the time, I'm grateful for, because I did have a small salary coming in. I had renewals that had already kicked in and that. And I mean, and agents were still writing business.
Mm-hmm.
So, my financial situation maybe went down a little bit, but it wasn't horrible. Like, I couldn't imagine just being a brand new agent, or maybe just within the first year in the business, and having to figure all that out right then and there. I mean, they wouldn't even have a book of business to call.
Yeah.
So
it got hard
at least,
for them.
yeah, I mean, when I wasn't talking with agents, I had a spreadsheet of a list of my policy holders, and that's really first thing I did. I remember I was even doing trainings talking about that. Get a hold of all your policy holders, talk to them. Let's talk about adding on coverage, because those people, they already trust you. You've already done business with them.
Mm-hmm.
They've let you in their home.
You already have their information.
Yeah, you already have their information. So we did the same thing. We started working the book of business and just working with our existing policy holders. I was calling existing policy holders. I was calling lapsed policy holders.
Mm-hmm.
And my agents were doing the same thing. And then from there, we started ordering leads, and, trying to follow all the specific guidelines and rules to selling over the phone, and asking if we could text them a picture of our business card, and asking if we could send them a picture of the lead.
Mm-hmm.
We were texting them pictures of the direct mail lead card, and just little things like that. It was a start. Then me and Tommy at the time, we both kind of worked together to build like a telesales platform that worked really well. We had a small group of agents that were on it. We had live transfers coming in. We had TV commercial calls. Again, we were just doing whatever we could to see to it that we still had business coming in. We knew we needed to adapt to the situation, and we needed to put something pretty solid in place. Like I said, so agents would have the ability to continue to do business and to continue to do it with us.
Exactly. I think some people just didn't survive, but I think in many cases, not the brand new agent that didn't have the optimal opportunity. I think some agents that didn't survive were the people that look for an excuse anyway. Like, well, it's raining today. I can't go out and work. Well, I needed to get an oil change today, or well, I had a flat tire or a flu or a cold, or whatever excuse. They had a really, really good one now. And now they could blame their exit from the industry on something else. So would you agree or disagree that sometimes the people that were never going to make it anyway made it quickly out of the business because they had that excuse they wanted?
That's funny. You just took the words right out of my mouth. As you were saying that, I was thinking those are people that would have failed anyways, regardless of the situation. But now, heck, at least they had something good to blame it on.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, it wasn't the bad leads. It wasn't the bad training. It was the fact that,
There's a pandemic.
There's a pandemic. I can't work anymore. Oh, poor me. So, now they had something else to blame it on. Accountability issues. I mean, yeah, that's just people that blame COVID for why they're no longer in business. They would be no longer in business right now anyways, and it would have been something else's fault or something else to blame.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, outside of the three types of people that encountered three different paths during COVID, I think there were three different phases to it for our business. Phase one was like that, here it comes, and then that face-to-face shutdown phase. And then phase two, to me, was sort of that you kind of came out of the house, went back to the door, and had to deal with the COVID objections. I remember it was still illegal to sell in person in Pennsylvania, but I was just straight done with the phone game. So I was working New Jersey, I was working Delaware, I was working other states where it wasn't illegal to sell in person. But then you encountered the COVID objections. Talk to me if you remember about that phase. If you or any agents you worked with had experience with that part of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, again at the time I wasn't out in the field a ton, so I didn't experience it nearly as much as others. But I mean, I remember I would have agents that they would even bring like some lawn chairs in their car. They'd put them in the back of the car with them. Um, if the person wouldn't let them in the house, they'd say, "Well, that's all right. Let's just go outside and sit. I got some chairs. We can sit 8 feet apart from one another, and we can get it done that way." Uh, I had agents that would show up at the house. They wouldn't let them in. They'd go back to their car, and they would end up talking to them over the phone, and they would sell it over the phone. But but again, people were willing to adapt and figure out a way to make it work. Even your situation, like you said, you had to adapt. You had to work in another state or another couple states because your state was not allowing face to face. So it's just a matter of kind of doing what you can when you got to, you have to be willing to adapt to change if you want to stay in business. So, and that's what I experienced. A lot of agents doing those different things like that. Like I said, like getting the lawn chairs, setting them up outside. And again, I mean, I had agents too that would tell me that they almost felt like it was just another objection. That a lot of people probably weren't even that as concerned about it, but they would just throw it out there as an objection, and just having to figure out ways to overcome that objection to still be able to get in the house. Always had to have a mask on you or with you. And yeah, like I said, fortunately, my situation, I didn't have to experience it at the time too much out in the field, but I know people that really didn't lose any money, and they did pretty well out in the field throughout. Not even really, again, it was more of a mindset thing. If they let it bother them, it would have bothered them. But I had agents that just did not let it bother them, and it was just another day out in the field, and they never really changed anything, and they did just fine.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, or maybe rationalizing, or maybe it's true that the people that would give you the mask objection and wouldn't let you in no matter what you did, they weren't going to buy anyway. Like this was just a different version of the reason they were going to say no, and there was nothing I was going to do about it. I wasn't going to show up in a hazmat suit. I didn't feel like carrying a chair around in the hood, sitting in it wouldn't work. I wasn't going to sell from my car unless it was somebody that I knew. It was just that I told myself if that was the reason they said no, it would have been no, something different anyway, and to move on to the next person. It was almost like they saved me 40 minutes of time anyway. Adam, that's how I saw those people.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like we said, they would have had another excuse anyways. If it wasn't COVID, it would have been the doctor's appointment that they got to get to, or it was just some other thing. So, yeah, there would have been some other reason why they wouldn't have let you in. It was just an easy out for people. Oh, COVID. Yeah, I can't talk to you about that. We might both die. So,
more reason
that's
to
why
get
you need to let me in. Yeah,
exactly.
that's why I'm here. We need to get this done because of COVID.
Yeah. I think it was funny because people were really tested to their resilience in the field. Like, is at one point I remember someone saying to me, and this is more of a phase 3 kind of comment, the mask objection. And I looked back at them, I said, bro, come on. Really? Like, we're way past that. Like, is that actually a thing, or do you want to try a different objection with me at this point? Because I just laughed it off at that point. We ran into some strange situations, but one of the things I remember doing during phase 2, it was July of 2020, was I went to southern Louisiana in the middle of the apocalypse, I would jokingly say, to the middle of nowhere, and worked 4 days straight, a set of leads that I was stuck with by an agent who quit, and wrote over $20-some thousand of final expense premium. Like, you can do it if you wanted to do it, but it really was, did they really want to do it?
Yeah. And well, like you said too, with the whole mask objection, I mean, I didn't like having to wear a mask, but you got to do what you got to do. I mean, you go in the house, and if they had one on, and I would just, if anything, I would have one on, and once I got in the house, I'd ask them, you know, do you want me to keep it on? Are you more comfortable with me having it on, or is it all right if I take it off? If they wanted me to
Go take
keep
it
it
off.
on, fine. I'll keep it on. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know. I think face to face, I mean, so much of the face to face sale is people being able to see you and your mannerisms and just
Mhm.
kind of showing that you really care. It's a little bit harder to express that when they can't really see you, when your face is covered up. But
Exactly.
yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, had to adapt to the change, and it is what it is. We all pulled through, and well, not everybody pulled through and made it through it, but those who wanted to were able to pull through and still remain successful in the business.
Exactly. I remember October 2022, we and about 40 other people got together in Nashville and had an opportunity to put together kind of a neutral zone training opportunity for people of different backgrounds, IMOs, agencies, and whatever. And you saw something during that event that had you kind of really change the future of your career as well. Can you talk about that?
Uh, that was actually probably one of the first times me and you really had talked. I
Hmm.
remember I used to post a lot of videos in one of the Facebook groups that we were both involved in. And, what really got me into that was I just remember one day, I remember seeing this Facebook group, and at the time there was like 6 or 7 thousand people in it. And we're talking about 6 or 7 thousand insurance agents. And it just kind of got me thinking, well, why would I not want to start posting content in here? Nobody else is. Why would I not want to post videos in here? There's 7,000, there's an audience of 7,000 insurance agents in here. Why would I not want people to know who I am and what I do? So, but that's, started posting in there, I think. And then, me and you kind of started talking through there. And then you were putting on that event. You had invited me. And yeah, we had a lot of good speakers just kind of going over different things and talking about different ways to succeed in the business long term. It was a good event. And yeah, I remember at the time, everybody, we still had to mask it up. I remember going out at night. I remember we were out in downtown Nashville, and like cops would stop us, and outside, we weren't even inside a building. We were outside walking around, and cops were stopping us if we didn't have our mask up. And I remember I actually had some lung issues like back in November of 2019. I think it might have been COVID, before COVID was a thing. I was having some cough. I couldn't like say anything without coughing. I couldn't like laugh without coughing. And I remember my doctor, she put me on an asthma medication and an inhaler. So I remember I was walking around downtown Nashville. I don't know if you remember, but I'd keep the mask off, and I just would show the cop my inhaler. I can't wear a mask. I have asthma, and it messes up my breathing. Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then they were okay with it.
Yeah, it was definitely an
So
interesting evolution of things that took place, but you saw
yeah,
an opportunity to work with more than one product kind of early before you ever made that decision. It opened your mind up to working with agents on more than just one product and bigger and better. And that's where you kind of found yourself 3 and 4 years later.
yeah. It definitely, it was eye opening a little bit. It was just kind of nice to be involved, or to be able to be in front of a lot of people that were in the same industry, and communicating and having good conversations with people that just kind of had the same mindset and goals of what they were looking to do in the future. And I mean, I remember, the position I was at the time. Yeah, most people thought that I was like the guy at that company, and I wasn't. But I was really at the time trying to work my way up to that. But kind of realized, yeah, from sitting down and hanging out with people, and just really seeing how there was just so much more out there than just solely focusing on the one product and the one company. So, being able to offer more to clients, even in the future, being able to add more when it comes to other products, when it comes to Medicare. You never know what you're going to run into out in the field. So yeah, it's good to kind of have a little bit more lined up than just being able to offer one thing. Because like you've said in the past, companies change, they become uncompetitive even with their rates. And you got to figure out ways to adjust, just like talking about COVID and having to figure out ways to adjust. If you're solely focused on one carrier, I mean, it's going to get to the point where you're going to have to figure out a way to adjust your business. If they change or if they quit even being involved in the final expense market, like some companies have, well, agents have had to adjust if they want to stay in business.
Pretty quickly.
That's just how it is. You just have to adjust to the situation and of what's going on around you.
Yeah, one of a lot of agents' favorite toys went away at the end of last year, and that's required a big adjustment from a lot of people. But ironically, none of those people had to be the reason they fail. Like they were better than that. Then there was phase 3, where we kind of came out of our houses, went back into homes, and business continued. But for those listening and watching at this point, what would you suggest to someone so that the next time something bad happens, they're not destroyed out of the business? Besides adjusting, what else can they do so that if they have their own personal COVID, their own tragedy, or a national emergency, they're not taken out of the business because of it?
Well, I think money management is important. I mean, you got to set money aside. You can't just be focused on the week by week income. I mean, you got to really establish more than that. Yeah, especially if there's a pandemic again. I mean, that could definitely really affect people financially. A pandemic or anything, who knows? There's so much going on in the world right now. We don't know whatever could happen or if or what. But yeah, it's important to just kind of plan ahead and just kind of have things in order. So if something were to happen, we're prepared. And I think about that a lot. You know, I'm so focused on the field sales and working with agents locally in that, but I mean, I think about that all the time. Well, what if something happened? You always got to have, like we talk about, you always got to have that plan B and just be prepared and just kind of know if something were to happen, like you already know what you're going to be doing. You're already going to have something established where you can just kind of dive right into that and you're not going to miss a beat.
Yeah, I remember in that early phase of COVID, what I did is I looked at my budget, I looked at my bank balance, and I divided it and said, all right, good. Whew, all right. Well, this has to continue to be a problem for like 6 months before I have an actual financial problem. And that would be no renewals and no new business and no income, which didn't actually happen. So money management is so important. Have a flipping budget, know how much you're making, how much you're spending, have an emergency account. What is that? It's like a month of your income, 3 months of your income, 6 months of your income, tucked away for days like today. Work hard when you can work hard. Like build your book of business, build your renewals, build your back end income, build your agency so that if there is a tragedy, you've got that like momentum to carry you through it. Because guess what? There may never be another pandemic. There may be, but there will always be something that goes wrong in your life, your personal life, your family life. And you got to be able to navigate those situations too, I believe.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, like I said, you know, with everything we're talking about, we have to be willing to adjust to the world we're living in. Just never know what could happen, but it's just important to be prepared. So if, like you said, if something were to happen again, we're ready. We're not going to miss a beat. We can, you know, even running an agency, have something else to be able to kind of get agents involved in right away where they're not going to miss a beat either. Because when you're running an agency, you can't just focus on yourself, but you got to focus on the fact that the decisions you make are not just affecting yourself, but they're affecting the livelihoods of many other people that are involved with you. So, you know, that's why it's important to, you know, have something in place and ready to go for, you know, not only yourself, but for anybody that's involved with you. So they're not going to miss a beat either.
Yeah, I think that is so profound where you have to make decisions based off of what's best for them, not you. You're like second, third, or fourth in that consideration sometimes. What you do and say and operate as a personal producer, so different as soon as you have 1, 2, 10, 50 people that depend on the decisions and the actions and the leadership. Speaking of that, before we wrap up, why don't you go over the whatever it takes incentive, whatever term we're using with it. I think it's a really cool idea you came up with, and I want you to plug it before we wrap up.
Yeah, I'm calling it the whatever it takes weekly challenge is what I'm calling it. It's just something that when you're out there working, it'll push you to maybe do a little bit more. And when you do a little bit more, you'll be able to tell everybody about it. If you win, uh, the way it's going to work is, there's going to be a form that you'll be able to fill out. And I'm going to put together like a landing page to send people to, just makes it a little bit easier, where they can fill out that form and they can submit any story of when they feel like they maybe did like a little bit extra to make that sale. One example I've mentioned, an agent that will drive their client to the bank to get their banking information. Had they not done that, they more than likely probably would not have made that sale. Is the client going to run to the bank and get that? Sometimes they will, but most of the time, probably not. Little things like that. I mean, I had a guy start talking about business in the elevator in a senior complex, ended up going and sitting down with the person and writing them business. Had he not let people know what he does, he would not have written that business. Just little things like that are going to make a difference. Or maybe that sale that you made at 8:30 at night when other agents were already home, watching TV. So yeah, just WIT, whatever it takes.
I think it's going to catch on.
Yeah. And so, everybody's going to start submitting stuff, whether they're part of our agency or anywhere really. Anyone that's got that link, they can fill it in. We're going to be every Friday morning. Well, Chris has his call every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. On Fridays, I'm on the call, and that one will also be live on the Insurance Life and Everything in Between Facebook group. And that's where we will announce or maybe even vote for the winner in real time. And that person then will receive a week's worth of free appointments set for them. We've been training appointment setters, and they've been calling our leads. They've been filling up our schedule with appointments every week. And now we're going to be rolling that out to other agents, and we're going to be, again, one agent each week. Those calls will be done, and they will receive a full week's worth of appointments for them at zero expense to them outside of the leads that they're supplying to have those calls made. So the bigger the inventory leads you have, the more appointments you're going to have set. I'd say probably keep those within 90 days old to supply to the appointment setters. But like we've said, in my experience, all I ever used to do was door knock leads, and I did very well. But once I added in the appointment setting, it gave me a little bit more structure, and it did definitely put me in front of more people on a regular basis to be able to make more sales. So I think even if someone wins and maybe they're not used to working appointments, maybe they usually just door knock leads, they'll give us leads of people that they never were able to get a hold of at the door. And there's going to be appointments set on those leads. They're going to be able to sit down with those people, and they're going to see the value in having a little bit more structure to their day. And then we're going to have them on the podcast, and we're going to interview them, celebrate their success, and they'll be able to have a platform where they can tell the whole world about it. So I think it's going to be a pretty good thing.
Yeah, not to mention we do offer appointment setting for our agents or non-agents. Obviously, there's a fee if you didn't win or earn the whatever it takes challenge. But if you're thinking to yourself right now, man, if I just had someone to freaking dial my leads, I would write so much more business. I'm already out there. I'm knocking. I'm dialing myself. I can't find anybody. Well, they're right here. Give us a reach out, and we'll be able to go over the program with you, the costs, go over what's available, what's required, how it works. It's been working for 4 months now consistently. And each week or almost each month, we scale another person out of the program, and it works just as good. Got to put in leads to get out appointments. But if you're saying to yourself right now, I need a setter. Hi, we have them. Give us a call, reach out, send us a text, contact Adam on his page. We'll get you set up with a program we have available as well.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it'll definitely help you increase your income. Chris, I know you write, $400,000 a year in premium. That would not be able to be achieved, I don't believe, without having those appointments set. I mean, like I said, I've worked pretty hard over the years and primarily just door knock leads, but I never had a year where I put up that much premium. So I know the work that's involved. you just kind of, took a little step that's a bit of a shortcut to get you in front of more people, and it works.
Yeah. It was about a week ago, maybe 8 days ago. I wrote for the third or fourth time in my career over 10,000 in final expense production, not IUL, not mortgage protection, pure uninhibited final expense in one day, all on appointments plus one referral plus one book of business. But that would have absolutely never happened simply door knocking. I love door knocking. If they outlawed the phone, I'd bang doors the next day. But that was the power of appointment setting, 10K in a single day.
Pretty awesome. So yeah, looking forward to the contest. And I think, I think more and more people are going to find out about it, and it's going to be a pretty big thing. And like you said, even if you're not with us, or if you don't win that contest, but you do need some help when it comes to appointment setting, we can definitely get you set up and see what we can do to get you in front of more people on a regular basis and make more money.
Appreciate it. Well, if you watch today, like down here somewhere. If you haven't subscribed, do it right now. It's over here somewhere as well. And most importantly, comment something about what you saw today that caught your attention. Comment below. The more comments, the better our algorithm treats us. If you're following and you weren't subjected to looking at us today, make sure you follow the podcast, whatever platform you're on, so you continue to hear content that we put out on a very regular basis. And Adam, I appreciate you taking the time to do it with me today.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Chris.